I have often wondered about my sanity in choosing the path through life that I have chosen. It most often goes through my mind when I'm waist deep in muck and water, in total darkness with no idea where my truck is. Or maybe when I'm sitting in a tree facing the wind with wind chills below zero. Or maybe dragging a deer out from a remote area a couple miles back all night long. It's enough to make a guy think. Maybe those guys in the box blinds over the food plot, hunting a deer with a name, have the right idea. But don't worry. I quickly come back to reality and face the headwinds with a defiant smirk. Anyone who has accomplished hunting a giant public land whitetail and guessed his day's bed out of a giant forest full of other hunters and watched him rise and come to him is the kind of guy who relishes in earning his or her success. It's kind of a weird trait with us that not everyone will understand. There are some of us who enjoy the pain. So right now, me and Eric are kind of in a similar situation here, bow hunting wise. We've both been hunting all season, really trying to get something big with the bow, passing a lot of deer, not going after easy opportunities at medium deer, just looking for something really big. And you know, it's interesting to watch other people and how they hunt and their thoughts on it. But really, it's a whole mindset that keeps you going. And I notice a lot of people just stop hunting right now. You know, you got your fair weather guys that they hunt a little in early season and a lot in rut. And then when gun season ends, they end. As a matter of fact, gun season, I mean, by me, it's way different than it was when I was young. I mean, opening day is just packed with people. Mm-hmm. What do we see Sunday? Like 2 people? Right.
It slows down dramatically.
Dramatically. Yep. Yeah, and then there's a little rise after Thanksgiving when the guys from up north come back home, but not much. And then when gun season ends, the woods are empty. And that's crazy to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get the whole rest of the season. Right. And it's just, to me, there's different mindsets in hunting. And if you want to be successful, hunting like a beast, and hunting public land, you kind of have to have a certain mindset. You have to be a certain type of person, and you have to be wired a certain way.
I made it all the way freaking through that, just to fall off at the end. Dang.
You gotta do the honors, the official beast boot dump.
It is an honor. Not just a little bit. A whole lot.
I saw some chunks. You could have made soup out of that.
Yeah, it really comes down to your personality.
It does.
And your drive and your want.
So here we go. We're going on late season now. We're coming into winter. Now, right now, we got these stupid doe seasons that are holding us back. Mm-hmm. You know, and so maybe we do a couple travel trips or something. But sometime around the end of December, bow hunting is going to open back up for the both of us. And at that point, you know, we got another month of chasing bucks. Mm-hmm. And, you know, how many days do you think you went bow hunting?
This year, probably somewhere around 70.
Yeah, I would say that I'm probably right in that same ballpark, maybe a little more. Well, pretty similar. Yeah. And now we're going to go in and we're going to do, in the last month, as much as we can, but it's going to be hard because if you work at all, at the end of the day, there aren't many hours left.
Not much daylight.
Yeah, what does it get dark around 4 or 5?
4:30, yeah, it's about shooting light.
Yeah, so if you get out of work at 3 or 4, you got no hunt, right? So I've really got to adjust my hours to get out early enough to hunt in the weekdays. Mm-hmm. And pretty much you got the weekends. And really you don't have a lot of time to scout. And scouting is so huge in late season because the way we scout is we drive around, look for tracks. We got one deer trail here coming out of there. It actually had some big tracks on it. There should be another one right here. There's a couple sets of tracks on that one. Oh, here's the big one. Right here. Okay. Look for deer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of them. I don't see any big bucks. There's a few more. Go and walk pieces. Keep in mind when you're looking at this, it snowed yesterday. That's a hell of a trail. But all the deer seem to be congregated in areas, and it changes every year on public land. But a lot of times on the public land, I mean, they might be, you know, where the dogwood is, or where the corn is, or where beans are, or something is drawing them in, and they will all congregate to that area, and they conserve energy by getting up, moving very short distances from bed to food. So all the deer are in like one spot, so it's feast or famine. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can go into late season and go around and never find a deer to hunt.
Well, and you mentioned scouting, and typically in late season, you got a little snow. And you really have to take advantage of that when you can. You know, so that scouting comes in huge in late season because that snow tells you everything. It tells you right where these deer are.
Yeah, I mean, once you have a snow that's been on the ground for over a day, the tracks are going to tell you everything. I mean, that's the best time to be looking. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you got to be kind of looking for the deer themselves. That's a great point.
But it is hard at, you know, when you work a full day and you get off of work at 2:30, whatever maybe you get off, and you can't always take advantage of that, you know, getting out and doing your scouting in the evening before you run out for a hunt.
So you get into this where, you know, it's 20 below zero, you know, the wind chill, it's telling you not to go outside, but the deer move really well in that time period. You know it and I know it. Mm-hmm. So we go out and we hunt in that stuff. So what keeps your attitude positive? What keeps you in the tree?
I'm going to say first off, yeah, it sucks. It gets pretty cold sometimes. But there's a certain mindset that you have to have. And what I do is, it's kind of a internal battle with myself, but I tell myself that I love it.
Watch this. You can see my breath. Usually you can only see my breath when I haven't brushed my teeth for 3 days. But this time, I think there's a 50-50 chance it's because of the cold.
You know, in worst case scenario, you're not going to die. If it's that bad, you know you can get out of that tree. If you have to get out of there for whatever reason, you're not going to die. And it hurts a little sometimes, but you know, that's part of it. And that's part of what makes you love doing this. It's a challenge.
Oh, man, that was a cold sit. All that just to have the deer get downwindy and spook. I think I burnt my face. Somebody on my forum brought something up the other day that I really loved. The fact that all these people out there, these, you know, wannabe hunter kind of people, and I'm not putting anybody down, but they have a catchphrase. When they finally kill a deer, it always starts with all that hard work, all that sacrifice. Oh, you know, hard work. You think about it, is it hard work? I don't know if it's hard work. Because work is something you don't want to do.
Right, work you get paid for.
right. Hard work, I wouldn't be going out there. I'd be staying home. There's something wrong with that phrase. Is it that you're pushing through miserable stuff? Yes. Is it that you're pushing through things that your body can hardly withstand? Yes. Is it that you're pushing it to the limits? Yes. But you want it that way. Look at the mass on that thing, eh?
It's unbelievable.
You look at the length of this thing's body. This is the one that was leaving those long stride tracks. I mean, this is the target buck.
Yep.
Look at the mass on him. That's the appeal. If you're hunting public land and you're doing what we're doing and you're struggling, I mean, now we both know this. I get a lot of offers from outfitters. I get a lot of offers from guides across the country. Come hunt my ranch, shoot a deer, just say that this is where you're hunting and that you're hunting with me and draw some people in here. You know, hey, that would be fun to go kill a deer. I might do it someday.
Yeah.
But that ain't hunting like we hunt.
It's just not it.
It's not what I'm out there for.
Missing the
it's
point.
not what, right,
Yep.
exactly. You're missing the point.
Yep.
The point is the struggle versus reward. It's the mental toughness. It's the proving you can do it. Why does a guy climb a mountain? Because nobody else can do it but him. He wants to prove to himself he can do it. Mm-hmm. And for guys like us, it's about the hunt. The kill is kind of anticlimactic. I mean, if you do what I've done my whole life, you start to like these deer a lot. They become your friends and stuff. I don't even like killing them. But hey, you lost the game, you die. You know, when there's the chance. But it's not like I'm not kind of rooting for the deer. I don't have to tip the odds. And I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people will do anything they can to put big bucks on the wall, and it doesn't matter why. I mean, everybody has their limits or their thresholds, and there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But being a public land beast, there's something about that equal playing field where anybody else can go, and being able to withstand whatever it throws at you. It's kind of like, you know, you talk about all that hard work, right? Mm-hmm. When me and you go into a place together and it's 10 degrees out and the wind is whipping and there's ice balls hitting us in the face and you fall through to your waist and get wet, what's the first thing you do if I fall through to my waist and get wet?
I laugh.
Right, exactly. You laugh.
I think it's funny.
It's funny. And what do? I try to wrench the water out of my pants, and with a defiant smirk, I move on and keep hunting. Because it's like I'm proving to myself I can still do it.
Yeah.
That I can still do what I did when I was 20, and I can still get out there and kill those bucks. And I don't care what the odds are. I don't care if they're 0.0001. You know what that means? They're 0.0001 more than if I was sitting on the couch.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And, you know, to put yourself through that misery and that pain and everything else, that's where you learn a lot about yourself and what you're capable of, because it's just, it is that much more rewarding to push yourself to the limits and learn about yourself. Whereas you could take the easy way out, and Dan had mentioned just sitting on the couch would be taking the easy way out. But what do you gain from that? Nothing at all.
In order to be successful at this, you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. You gotta kind of like it. If you don't like it, if you go on these hunts and you're miserable, you're mad, you're angry, don't do it. Take up golf.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's something we've always kind of, on our hunts together, we've always kept a positive attitude, I think. And that helps tremendously. It goes a long ways, because most of the times you don't even see a buck, mm-hmm. you know, but you got to keep that faith and you got to keep pushing forward. And that comes from, you know, keeping that drive and pushing yourself and testing your limits.
You know, it's a lot of this is confidence. You have to believe that it's going to work in order to keep doing this. And when you see somebody who is a little miserable, when you hunt with somebody who does complain, whine a little bit, it's because they're usually a new hunter. They haven't succeeded at this. Mm-hmm. And when they don't have that past to fall back on, they desperately want to prove, not only to the public, but more so to themselves, that they can do it, that they can withstand it. And when they fail, they feel like a failure. But you just got to keep going at it until you succeed. And it's easy for me to say that, because what builds that confidence in me, what makes me go out on day 51 after not killing a deer for 51 days, what makes me go out the next day and believe I'm going to kill a deer that day, mm-hmm. is because of the past years when I did. It's pretty noisy back here with the leaves and crap. I'm in swamps to get that suction noise too, so I took off my boots and socks, and one step at a time I went into the wind until I got within range, and I had to just get over a little bit to get a shot, and I shot him right in his bed. It was a good poke, but I got him, I saw him run, and he went back down, and he's laying right up here, so he ain't moving. I'm pretty sure he's down. And the newer guys don't have that, so they kind of got to build on that. They're going to struggle a little bit. They're going to have that mental struggle where me and you really don't have that. I mean, we'll go out on the last day of the season with a smile on our face saying, today's the day.
You know, and I was just going to bring that up. At one point in time, you would kill the buck, you know, the last day of season at the last hour.
That was that 11-pointer, 1991, January. It might have been 92 because it was right around that New Year's Eve day or whatever. It was the last day of the season. They used to end it on New Year's weekend.
Right.
And we had, like the wind chills were something like 60 below. And it was actually like 20 below. And there was advisories not to even go to work. You weren't even supposed to go outside. It was brutal. And there was this nasty wind. And I went out there and I sat, and it was the last minute of the last day, right at closing time, when I got my target buck.
There's no better test than that. I mean, at this point, you have to think anything can happen at any time after a hunt like that.
That 11-pointer legitimately scored about 130 inches. But that deer's like a Boone and Crockett to me.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
And that's what it's about. It's that struggle within, the fight, going. And two, on the opposite thing, I can think about the failures. And now, no hunt is a failure to me, but quitting is.
Yes.
Quitting is a failure. And I can remember once when I cut my finger off right here. It was right at the end of November. It was after gun season. I cut the finger off, they put it back together, and my tendons were all screwed up and everything else. Did that at work. And they said I wouldn't be able to use my hand or whatever else. Trying to pull my bow back, you couldn't because it would put stress on that finger. And I was onto a big buck, and I was pretty sure I could kill it. And I couldn't go hunt it. So I took my friend and I put him in there, and he killed it. And 2 days later, I could pull that bow back.
Really?
Yeah, and that buck was living in there. I think I would have killed it.
I'm surprised you didn't duct tape your hand right to that bull.
I would today. This is a long time ago. I mean, I was probably in my 20s. But looking back, I look at that as, it's a success because I really wanted my friend to get a buck.
Sure.
But it's a failure because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe I could do it. I didn't force myself to do it.
Yep.
And I think if it happened now, even if it ripped 3 stitches out, I'd be out there freaking hunting. You know what I mean? And then I have a story, rip 3 stitches out in that baby. You know, it is. It's a mental toughness game. There's another one where I kind of gave up on a spot, and I put a friend in there, and he shot this giant non-typical in a spot that I should have been because I didn't believe in the spot.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of that is, you know, it's the failures that grow you. It's not the successes. It's the failures. The failures make you look at that, and if you got the right mindset, you just look deep at why did this go wrong, and everything that goes wrong. And even the successes, you look at it and say, why did this succeed? And a guy that's wired like us, I mean, if you go out there and your arrow sliding back in your bow goes, when it goes across the slide and a deer hears that better be the only time that ever happens. Because when you get home, that's getting fixed, no matter what. And we're constantly working on it. And you hear these guys like, I got this creak in my bow, it's been going on for a while, now it cost me $1. Well, you knew about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got it. It's really the mindset of just always focusing on the deer and always going forward.
Yeah, I think the failures teach you a lot more than the successes.
I do too.
Because the successes, this is what you've been after all season, right? So you kill something, and now you're successful, and now you don't really reflect much on why didn't this work, why didn't that work. You're more focused on the celebration and the success. Whereas a failure, now you're trying to think about, well, how can I change this? How can I change that? You know, to try to kill this buck.
But you better be doing that with a smile on your face.
Yes.
Because if you dwell on the failure, if it gets inside of your head, you'll never succeed.
Right.
On the first day I was hunting, on opening day, I went too far in and I screwed up my hunt bad. It was an amateur mistake. And it really ticked me off that I made that mistake. On day 2, I got poison ivy. I tried climbing a tree with what I thought was a grapevine. It wasn't a grapevine. Now I got this crap all over if I get it on that bad. I was cutting the vine and stuff and had my arms up again. I even got it on my face a little bit. But some people would be so broke out right now they'd be in the hospital. I should be happy I just have a rash. On day 3, I dropped my bow 20 feet out of a tree stand. I thought for sure I broke something. It came crashing down. You know, when you hunt mobile, crap happens. Especially when you're first starting to go out for the season. And just to say, I'm not immune, but after hunting this way my whole life, I make less mistakes than others. But what gets me through is one of your most important aspects, probably even more important than your skills. You can learn skills, you can read tactics, you can employ what others are doing. But what you can't do is change your mindset. You have to have the right attitude. A lot of people would have took those first 3 days and they'd have crawled in a hole and they'd have given up. You gotta believe. You can't have that moment of doubt. That's what'll cost you big bucks. If I let that sink in my head, no way would I have walked all the way out here tonight. This was a crazy walk out here.
Right. So you have to take it kind of like, you've seen it with me. I'll have a giant buck come in, like this year. A giant out of nowhere that I didn't even, well, we kind of knew existed. We had like a picture one time, sure, and we had some hearsay about it, but it kind of disappeared. We weren't seeing it, and then I started getting pictures of a bunch of 140s. I'm like, I'm just going to take one of these 140s before the pheasant hunters come out here. And I'm sitting there, and this thing creeps up from behind me, and I decided to call it quits right at sunrise because of a bad wind. And I turn around to grab the camera, and there he is looking at me, this buck that we've been looking for, this absolute monster. And what did I do when he ran off? I started laughing. You win, but I'm still taking a look at that failure. Why did I fail? What did that deer do? Why did he come in that way? Where is he coming from? Where is he going? Now how can I go after him? Mm-hmm. Now I didn't kill him, but I got more pieces of the puzzle, and that deer's still alive.
I don't believe this. Son of a gun. The wind was wrong. It started blowing right towards where the deer had been coming from. I started getting down and I heard something. I turned around and a giant buck was right behind me coming in from the other direction and ran off. I should have just stayed. Jeez. It was a giant. It was really wide. I can't see him anymore. I tried to get some film, but it's right into the sun.
You can just crumble as a person. You can go home and kick the dog. You can go, take it out on your old lady, or you can laugh at it and say, "Yeah, you won this time," because it's really, to me, it's like a game of basketball between me and you in the backyard. Don't matter who wins. We're having fun, right? And I'm doing that with the bucks. And if you're getting too involved and like getting mad about them winning, you're never going to succeed because you're going to fail a hell of a lot more than you succeed, especially on public land.
GPS signal lost.
It looks like we're lost. I was just going to say something real similar. It's really important who you choose to hunt with. Now, I like hunting with Eric because him and me really mesh mentally. We can throw things off each other and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Hey, the streak is over.
It is finally over.
You almost didn't come today, too.
Oh, this is a long time coming. My gosh.
Hell yeah.
Nice. We gotta get some pictures right here, dude.
Yeah.
The streak is over.
Yeah, found one with no blood, too.
But you got to be careful if you have a hunting partner. You don't want a negative Nancy. You want a positive Pete. Like that. Yep. Negative Nancy, positive Pete.
Dude, that is the giant 10 we've been chasing for 4 years. That's the giant 10, dude. That's the one we've been chasing for 4 years.
Oh my.
That thing's got to be like 7 years old. Oh man, that thing's got to be like 7 years old. Dude, I am so excited for you.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. go, 13 points.
Dude, that is the buck I've been dreaming about for years.
I know, I would have wanted you to kill him because you have been after it for so.
Yeah, but this really pays back all the work you put in.
Okay.
Dude, I am so happy for you.
Oh my God.
Negative Nancy's will bring you down with them. They're gonna, you go out and it's a real overcast day, looks like it's gonna rain. Me and you are gonna look at that and say, oh, this is a good day, deer should move today, it's overcast. Negative Nancy's gonna say, it's gonna rain, dude. I don't wanna be out in this crap, what are we doing? Let's go over here, someplace else, let's, go play golf today. Negative Nancy is gonna find the negative in everything. They're the ones that are gonna get mad when something doesn't go right. They're gonna argue over where you hunt, what you're doing and stuff. You don't need that, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna mentally drain you and not have you focused.
Yeah, it'll bring everything down in a hurry, the whole mood.
Yeah, and I've hunted with people like that, and there comes a point where you have to say, dude, you wanna go hang out sometime and shoot bows or something, but you're not hunting with me no more.
Yeah, yep.
I can't hunt with people who are negative, because they will bring you down.
Everybody's gonna have a little bit of a struggle from time to time, but overall, you really have to keep that positivity, because that'll play into your hunt. That'll play into, if I'm negative, that'll play into your hunt. That'll play into my hunt, and it doesn't make it fun anymore. And, and at the end of the day, you're out there to have fun. Yeah, it's a way of life, this hunting thing, but it's got to be fun too.
Oh. Not as big as I thought, but he's pretty nice.
Oh yeah.
He's a mature buck. Look at the body size on him. Look at that chest.
That deer is big.
Look at that. That thing's gotta go 200 pounds easy.
Yeah.
You got to have that positivity in hunting to begin with anyways, because when you're sitting in a tree, you can be sitting there. I've heard people tell me that they text when they're in their trees, they do their business on their phone when they're in their trees. I've had people tell me they read a book while they're up there to pass time. Literally, read a book. You know what I'm doing when I'm in a tree? First thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the trails that are coming in that I think the deer is coming from. Okay, at what point is he going to give me a shot? At what point is he going to turn? At what point could he bust me? Where do I have to be careful here? How's he going to come in? Where's he going to go? And when am I going to take the shot? When am I going to draw the bow? I'm getting it all in my head right off the bat. And then from that point, I go to focus. I'm listening for noises. I'm listening to the birds, the squirrels, everything around me. See if there's anything going on I have to focus on. All of a sudden there's a squirrel chattering over here. Is that because a buck just got up? It's moving?
Right.
You hear some jays go off. What's going on over there? And you're listening for that snap of the branch that's too loud for a squirrel, too loud for a rabbit bunny. Oh, I hear one coming. I think I just heard a big branch break. This could get good. I don't know what that could be other than a bear making that noise. So hopefully. Me another one. You're concentrating. You're watching for movement. The last thing you want is that deer to creep out, and he's the one that sees the movement while you turn the page or you're texting or you got that light from the phone on your face and that yellow light.
Yep.
So it's really a matter of concentration.
Yeah, when I'm in the stand, it's pretty similar. I like to bet on my odds and bet that that buck will come right up that trail that I picked. And then I kind of try to envision him actually walking up that trail.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do. It's, once again, it's a little mental game for me, whatever it is, but, you know, and it's fun to bet on those odds. And when that buck does come up that trail, it's a cool feeling. It's maybe not something you want to shoot or whatever, but that's what I try to do in the tree.
And even that carries into your setups. So when I go into an area, and I've already got the mindset, because that's how I look at every hunt. Every hunt I go into, I'm thinking that way, right? So now when I go into set up an area, I'm looking at it, and I'm not just walking in there, walking around, where do I set up kind of thing. I'm coming in from a distance, I'm thinking the deer are coming from over there, I'm staying beyond it, and I'm looking for a tree, I'm looking at how the thermals are gonna go, what's the wind doing, where are the trails at. You get a little closer, and you're saying that tree, but you get a little closer, and all of a sudden it changes. Well, wait, from this angle, that tree's on too much of an angle to get a stand in. I can get into this tree, you go to that, a little closer to that tree, you don't get all the way to it, but you start looking and you're like, oh, wait a second. That one, there's actually a slant to the ground, it's gonna pull a thermal right to that trail. Oh, this tree right here is the best tree. And I'm looking at that tree and I'm like, okay, where do I have cover and I have shooting? Where can I put the stand? How can I face the stand at the deer? How can I where am I gonna have shooting lanes? Because you're not gonna be out there hacksawing trees or the deer is bedded 50 yards from you.
Right.
So you're getting up to that tree and you're figuring this out and you're getting that stand up and you're climbing up the back of the tree and getting it up there. And then you're envisioning where these deer are gonna come from.
I got down the tree line about, I don't know, 70 yards, probably more like 60, 50 yards. And I circled around the downwind side, and over by this tree, a whole bunch of trails come together. It just kind of end there, I don't know why. But there's some heavy trails coming in from this way. And there's an old scrape there, and a fresh scrape right there. And you can see that these branches are worked. That one actually looks a little fresher. It's just got a broken branch laying in it. But I'm thinking that tree right there pretty much cover everything. I could reach out that way a ways, and I could still hit this opening with the wind. It looks like some deer are coming out of that stuff, and there is some trees in there they could be bedded under. I mean, it's a horse apiece. This ain't a bad tree here either, but I'd be right on top of them when they came out. I think I'm better off over there and just hope they don't come out over there. If they come out over there, I'm gonna kind of be out of range unless I get lucky. A lot of traffic going in and out of here. And there's a good trail going under that tree too. So I'm not gonna walk on that trail. I'm gonna go in right here as quiet as I can through those cattails, just so I don't get sent over there. And I think I'm gonna go up that tree right there and try that. There ain't too much for straightness. None of these trees are really straight. That's the only one that's straight. There's an opening at that tree too. Heck, that tree, if I was high enough, I could shoot over this stuff, and that's got good cover. And my wind wouldn't be in here at all. It wouldn't be a bad shot to these scrapes, actually. Because that tree's kind of enclosed, you know, by cattails. I can see trails coming into that all over the place too, but from up there, I should be able to shoot over those cattails. Hit one there, hit them here, hit them over there. Yeah, I think I'm going to go to this tree, right up this deer trail, and try that. See if I can get a stand right up there in that straight part of it. Some big tracks on this trail, and they're fresh. Yeah, a lot of stuff comes together right here. This is just pounded down. Trails going off in every direction. I think this is the right call. Just a matter of not getting seen in that little tiny tree. I'm in a cattail ocean. You see this? This is literally a tree line. Otherwise, there's no trees in this whole ocean of cattails. This is like a tree line. And I figured the bucks would be coming through here. I kind of looked at this on a map and said, this is the spot. I know there's some big bucks in here. And it's really not that big of an area where they could be traveling. This is kind of like a dry land oasis out in the middle, surrounded by water and surrounded by pheasant hunters and grass. I came in here blind, found this tree, and there's a lot of sign here. There's scrapes and all kinds of stuff and trails right where I thought it would be based on the map. And I just wanted to show you guys what a fat girl tree looks like. Look at this tree. It's this big around, shakes. I got the stand right up there and some thick stuff. I can touch the stand. The scrapes are right there. This tree line, if you look at it, if you want to call it a tree line, has open grassy areas. The rest of this is all thick cattails. So this deer will follow this tree line and bed along it and stuff. I just barely got in here. But you can see all the trails just working through here. Be a great spot to be when they're chasing around and rutting back here.
So the whole thing is envisioning what's going to happen and concentration. If you're thinking about what's going on at home with your wife, if you're arguing with people, if you got somebody in the group who's a pain in the butt, if you got somebody that's texting you every 10 seconds, did you see any squirrels yet? Did you see a buck yet? Did you see, is there anything moving over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll throw you off. It'll throw you off your game. You could, like we talk about how we hunt together a lot. We do, but we hunt. You go your way, I go my way. I hunt solo. I don't need somebody holding my hand. You don't need that either. And neither of us want that.
No. It's got to be your own hunt.
Dude, spoon her down.
What?
Spoon her down, I got him. I
heard you shoot.
I nailed him. There he is. What do you think, Dave?
Holy crap. Jesus.
I told you he's a good one. How big do you think that thing is, Dave?
Oh, he's big.
Yeah, he's got to be 21 inside, maybe.
Yeah, I just think he's a little bit wider than he thought.
Holy crap, Dave. Look at the mass on that thing.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning how when you come into a situation and you're deciding where to set up and you pick a tree and you get up to that tree and it's too crooked for you to get in, and I do something very similarly. What I like to do is actually pick out 2 different trees, from where I think those deer are coming from. That way I got a backup just in case. But it's tough. There's 2 different scenarios where you went in and you scouted something out and you already have a tree picked. And then there's going in blind. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a lot of fun because now you're trying to figure this scenario out, right? As opposed to having it pre-scouted. That's actually my favorite hunt.
So you said you hunted about 70 times. Mm-hmm. How many times out of that 70 times did you hunt a tree that you hunted this year already?
Probably 5 times.
It's about exactly what mine is. About 5 times.
It's rare. I'll hunt the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to be somewhere else. And I have a history of seeing a good buck, and I'll go back the next night, and I'll sit, in that vicinity, but that buck doesn't show up. So I've never had a lot of success doing that. So for that reason, I like to at least move a little ways.
Do you have any examples of mental toughness when it got you an animal? When something you did, a decision you made, actually made you successful?
Yeah, actually, one time in a marsh near me, I had climbed up a tree, and one of my pieces of gear made some noise, and that got in my head because all of a sudden a doe got up and ran off. She heard it, she saw me move, and of course in my head I was like, this hunt is blown, this is it, I should just get out of here. And I'm like, no way, you have to stick this out. And not about 45 minutes later, I had a good buck come in right on the trail I set up on, outside of some doe bedding. Of course, this was rut time, so anything can happen, but I decided to stick it out, and that buck came within 30 yards of me, and I put an arrow in him, and that was that. But, You know, if I let that get in my head that I blew that deer out because of equipment failure or whatever, and I just left and got out of there, that would have been the end of it. That would have been the end of that hunt.
Think about that hunt I did last year in Iowa. The first week I went out there. I went out there and I got on deer like crazy, and I finally got onto something really big. And I was having problems with my camera, and I couldn't figure it out. It was when I discovered that the camera had a gain button.
Yep.
And I turned the lighting completely off on the camera in low light. It was, without that gain turned on, I couldn't see anything.
Sure.
You know, it was like 10 minutes after opening, and I could not get any light in the dark woods. And I'm struggling with that while the deer's walking in, not paying attention to his rack size, which is a failure. At some point, you drop the camera and pick up the bow, because I'm there to hunt. It's not really about filming, right? Otherwise, we'd have pristine films like a cameraman and shit like that, right? But when a deer got in, I realized it was much bigger than I thought. It was Boone and Crockett class, where I thought it was probably like 140s, and was thinking maybe I won't even shoot it. And then when it got underneath me and it's right at point blank, and I'm in a tree this big around, like a pumpkin up in this tree, and I look down and I see that, I'm like, oh my God, this thing's a monster. Then I finally tried to take a shot, and I blew the shot, didn't get it on film and stuff, and it mentally crushed me a little bit.
Yep.
And I don't feel good about that shot. It looked good from the tree, but the buck just didn't act right. And I heard some bones when the arrow hit, like some crunch. Not that, like going through the lungs, and the blood is not lung blood. And, you know, when it got a little bit lighter out, you know, it was like that gray light. Just got a little bit lighter out, and there's a couple twigs hanging here. I mean, I shouldn't miss at 15 yards. I got this bow just dialed in for that range. I could shoot them out to 30 pretty good. It had me rattled a little bit. You know, in hindsight, I just keep thinking about that thing. That was a huge buck. I think it was bigger than I perceived it to be. I mean, it had just a wall of tines on it and beams. It was a big buck. I got a knot in my stomach. And where it shouldn't have, because like we say, you got to stay positive, but it did. We all get those sometimes.
We're human.
Right. And I got a little pissy about it, honestly. And I went home. And I sat there and sucked my thumb and pouted. Honestly, I was a baby about it a little bit. And I think we all have those moments. And I'm just being honest about it, where most people wouldn't. Right. And I got home, and I finally wiped myself off and cleaned myself up. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I just decided to go out for a hunt and push myself. I'm like, I can't sit on this couch. And what did I shoot that day? That next hunt, I shot a boom.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a failure, right? And it's in its most defined form, that was a failure. That you went home and you gave up on that hunt. But you recovered from that, and I'm sure you sat down and thought about it, and you asked yourself, what the heck am I doing?
Right.
You know.
Right. Go out and get on the next best scenario. Got me another one. This shot looked a little low, but it looked like heart. I didn't hear him crash, but that is a monster buck. Holy cow. Sounded like he crashed. Oh, I sure hope he's laying over there. I needed that one. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I can see him laying. Right through there. I see him. I can see the rack stinking way up above him. Got me another one. That's why you hold out. That's why you push on. And that's why you preserve over all the crap that goes on. It would have been real easy to give up after wounding that big one 2 days ago. And when I did that, when I killed that buck, it actually lifted my spirits so much. What did I do? Jumped in my truck, ran to Iowa, and shot another one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. And I actually remember too that buck that you shot in Iowa, you had a little bit of doubt. I know it took off out of your sight, and we were talking on the phone for a while about it. And I believe you told me, if I remember correctly, I believe you told me it sounded like he went down. It sounded like he was gurgling. Blah blah blah. I said, "Dan, you got him."
Yeah. I went up and scouted this leeward ridge. I didn't walk the ridge. I came up from the bottom to where I could see a pinch point on the map, so I wouldn't dirty up the area. So I came right up this draw. When I got to the top of this draw, I looked around. I found a big rub right over there, a couple of big scrapes, but some fresh tracks, but not a lot. Not a lot of sign in comparison to what I've been finding. But I'm going to give it a sit anyways, because you kind of got to trust the terrain. And a lot of these spots like this, bucks traveling looking for does are going to follow that terrain. They're going to go through these funnels. I mean, he ain't running through that ravine. He's got to go around the top. And to me, without even walking into it, this pine thicket back here looks like bedding, looks like doe bedding. And the land border is up here. There's a deep ravine full of bedding points on that land over there. And Scott told me he talked to the landowner over there, and they don't let anybody hunt, period. They don't like hunters. So I could see those deer holing up in there, especially when there's a little bit of pressure. And this is really the main funnel that connects everything. I was hoping to see a lot more sign up here. But I know there's a few big bucks up here, and if you're traveling the terrain, hopefully they come through.
got him. And sure enough, it wasn't long, and he went out there and found it.
You know what, when we went to look for that buck, the way I saw it from ground level coming into the next day was different than reality. It ran over this ridge, I saw it go over this ridge, and I marked it with a pine tree. But when I came in, I must have came in with a different view, and I looked over the wrong ridge. And you could see everything, and I'm like, you could see it was wide open. I'm like, there is no deer here. And then I was with Scott. He came along to help look, and even he had like, you could just see his eyes go down. It's like, well, if it's here, we should be able to see it. Mm-hmm. And then Scott, he's another guy that has just an extremely positive attitude all the time. He's like, you sure it wasn't this ridge over here? I'm like, yeah, it went over here. And we went back, we were trying to pick up blood and stuff, and there was blood the day before. You know, that night, I looked and there was blood, and it was kind of gone. I don't know if it dried up completely or animals ate it, but we were having a hard time finding blood, and I'm like kind of trying to pick up the track again and stuff, and just thinking, oh no, not again. And then Scott says, you might want to come over here and take a look, Dan. And over there, he goes, that looks like a deer. And I look down and you just see this brown lump, and it looks like an antler sticking up. And I was like, hell yeah! You know?
There he is. Take care.
Holy crap! All right, Scott, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He came in chasing a doe, or following a doe. The doe kept looking back, and then I heard these really strange grunts. It sounded like a 6-year-old playing with a grunt call. You listened to that, what'd you think of that?
Yeah, that was insane. I never heard one, I mean, just for, what, 5-8 minutes? Just these deep, long grunts.
Some of the grunts, the one grunt would last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that was quick. I was happy to do that. On that thing. Because there again, I mean, there was a little doubt, right?
Yes.
And that was still carrying on probably from the first hunt in Iowa.
Right.
But it happens. It happens to everybody.
There was a hunt many years ago, around, I want to say it was around 1990, somewhere in there. 1990, maybe 92, I think it was 92, because it was after that 11-pointer that we talked about that was on January 1st or whatever.
Sure.
But this buck, a friend of mine, was hunting an area that was really remote. And he had some pictures of this big buck. And it was really hard to get to. And I went out there scouting, trying to find this thing. And I figured it was living in this remote area across this river. And you had to walk quite a ways to get to this river, cross this river, and then the land was kind of isolated, where you couldn't get there unless you crossed this river, and the river was deep and fast. So it was pretty much like waist deep and fast. I mean, it was a current, so it's like pushing you,
Sure.
you know. And I got across there and scouted in the summer, and it's easier to do, you know, in summer when it's warm out, but it was August time. Went back there and looked around, and there was a ridge system over this swampy section. And I got back there and I was walking, and I saw right at the last light a buck. So I got my binoculars out and I'm watching. And that was my goal, was just to try to find them or find some sign of them.
Sure.
Which I was able from this ridge to glass this deer coming out of an oxbow. And it was a giant, it was really wide, just a massive buck. And they even look bigger when they're in velvet like that. Mm-hmm. The buck, while I was watching, came out and worked a scrape, even in August. Worked a scrape and then moved on. And I came back a couple more times and saw him a couple more times. Even got some video footage. This is so long ago, it was with a VHS camera with a big tape. And it's not very good stuff, but I got a little bit of it. And I was gonna kill that deer that fall. And I went, I had got my first bear tag that year.
Okay.
I went up chasing bears with hounds, the very first bear I ever shot.
Sure.
And I got my bear, ran back. I got it on opening day of bow season, I think, for deer. I ran back, I think it was Sunday. It might have been opening day, but I think it was Sunday, the day after opening day. On the way back, with the bear still in the truck in freezers, coolers, in the hide in the cooler, I stopped there, because it wasn't really close to my house, it was a little bit of a drive. Went out at noon, got there, it was raining. Ran out there and sat up over that scrape, and within an hour of getting in that tree, that buck came in and I shot it. Now how many other people
are going to go on that bear hunt, come straight back and do that before they even go to the taxidermist, to the meat place, home to see their wife. How many more people are going to go through that river, go out there and do all that? And that's what it takes. It takes that mindset that you're going to do anything to get that deer, with the exception of outfitted hunt or leased property or something. That's not to say a guy can't be leasing a property and be beast-like, or own property and be beast-like. It's just you have to up your odds or whatever, you know. But I don't think I could ever be locked on one property. I could see myself having a little property to play with, because it was kind of fun to have days. Like when everything was falling apart, just run over there and hunt.
Right.
But I mean, what would I hunt there? 5 times a year, 6 times a year? You know, I still have to have that mentality of running around, chasing deer all over the place. And there's always that idea that there's a big one out there somewhere, that's a giant. And you kind of know everything that's on your property. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there might be some monster out there somewhere. So you got to have that mentality of going after it, whether you have a property to fall back on or not. Or what a lot of this is about seeking, finding, and killing a giant buck. And I mean, you just started getting on one just before gun season, and I'm sure you're still going to be after him a little bit if he's still alive.
Yeah, I would love to be in there after him, probably at this very moment. But we got antlerless season this weekend,
I know.
So it kind of stinks. Good thing the weather isn't too nice. Can't imagine too many guys are out there right now, but yeah, I have spotted him on 2 different occasions, both times probably 60 yards away from me. One scenario, the first time I saw him, the tree I wanted to get into, I got in pretty late for my hunt that evening. Tree I wanted to get into, I already had a hang on up in the tree, which is not legal to do. So I didn't have time to get up there and mess with it, but that was the tree I needed. Had I gotten in that tree, I had this buck at like 15 yards. I probably should have found a way, but I just didn't see it at that moment. I mean, it was a big cedar tree. Some of these limbs are 6 inches around. It can't shoot through it. It's pretty thick, you know. Where that stand was about the only spot. But so yeah, I've had a couple encounters with him. I haven't been in there since gun. I don't know if he's around, but I need to get out there and, you know, see if I can locate this buck again. But he's a good one. My hunt has changed a little bit from what I've hunted in the past. I kind of wanted to get into something a little newer properties, and really hunting this way is a little bit different of a hunt than, you know, some of the ways that I've hunted in the past. This season I went out to a couple different properties where it was just vast cattails, right? Little CRP, that kind of thing. But selection for trees were pretty minimal, pretty dang minimal. And so this year, quite a few times, I found myself in a setup where it's the only tree in that area that you could sit in. You know, maybe a couple trees next to it, but you couldn't get a stand in them. But actually, at these trees, I ended up finding a lot of sign coming into these areas. And I could tell that there wasn't any other pressure there. I actually had some success hunting these trees, not as far as making a kill, but you know, I had some bucks come in. One specifically a shooter, actually 2 shooters that came in at the same time. Didn't have a shot, of course, they were 60 yards out again, and then a few other hunts I had, you know, at least deer come in, smaller bucks, but bucks nonetheless. But picking these properties where there aren't really any trees, because you know, people look for trees when they want to hunt deer. I mean, everybody thinks you gotta get up into a tree, and yeah, it's a huge
Even the
advantage.
trees that we're hunting out of, most people wouldn't consider trees.
Right.
I mean, they're big around and.
So at the end of the day, it really doesn't look like a hunting property, and I think that's really considered something to be overlooked.
It's kind of the fat
In some
chick
fashion.
syndrome. I mean, you're hunting out of a bush or a tree or something in a spot like in the open or right next to a road or something where there's a good forest over there, and people drive by and they're like, what the heck? And you know, you wouldn't want your friends to see you there, kind of thing, kind of like the fat chick thing where you wouldn't, you know. But you gotta hunt where people don't hunt. Those big bucks know where they're hunted. They know where they're not. And where you're seeking out on a property is the areas of that property where nobody's going. And those areas are where we gotta go. And that's a big part of this mental toughness thing too, because a lot of guys just can't put themselves in a situation like that. They're embarrassed to themselves. They're thinking, oh, this is the stupidest thing in the world. And a lot of times you fail in those situations. A lot of times I have big bucks come in and see me in the tree and run off. But you know what? I had big bucks come in.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in the game, I'm getting a chance. And that's why I'm killing them every now and then, is because I'm putting myself into places where they need to be. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a tree where there's no branches, no cover or anything. I'm trying to blend in with a tree this big around, turning sideways, hiding my face with a limbo, trying to look like a skinny little tree in line with it. And the buck comes walking in and I'm only 10 feet up and never looks up at me. Because they've never seen a human in that spot.
Right.
It works.
It does. It does. Yeah, I mean, you know, back to some of these properties that I was hunting this year that don't look like hunting properties, I was seeing a lot of bucks. And I'm not saying they were all shooters, but I was seeing a lot of bucks this year. And it felt good to get into these properties that aren't being hunted down and, you know, see some deer.
When I was in Kansas, I mean, we mapped out all these walk-in properties that are privately owned but open to the public because they get a tax break. But I had no idea what we'd hit for pressure. I didn't know. You know, I know people kill big bucks in Kansas. So I looked for the best properties, best looking properties. We went and started scouting, and what we found was people were pounding the stuff that looked great, looked pristine. And there's good buck sign in there and stuff too, but so much pressure, the deer are kicked off onto the private, and you start to figure out, okay, what looks like crap? And then when I went to what looks like crap, I ran into big bucks. No hunter sign, you know, 1 or 2 trees, maybe you gotta stalk them, maybe you gotta hunt out of a bush. Kind of reminded me a little bit of back home, but I got onto big bucks by doing that, by avoiding the stuff that everybody else looks at. You gotta get out of that box of hunting where you think deer should be and hunt where deer are.
Right, right. I mean, there's a lot of rules and guidelines, and bucks should do this and bucks should do that, right? But a lot of times that's not always the case. Sometimes you have to go outside of the rules to find these things. For example, I mean, you and Dave this year in Kansas, right? All these bucks were holed up in a little piece of grass.
Yep.
There wasn't a tree around it.
Right.
You know? But that's a perfect example. Granted, they were there because of a hot doe, but that's where you guys found your action.
Right, exactly. And nobody else was looking at that property because it didn't look like anything that they could hunt. How are they going to bow hunt that? Even with a gun, it'd be hard to hunt that property. You just walk across an open field up to them, you know?
Yeah.
But you could bow hunt it if you did it right. If you got in there, if you knew they were there, there's ways to get in there and hunt it. It's just a matter of understanding it. So a lot of the stuff that we do is tough setups. It's like, how are we going to hunt this? But that's part of it, is the figuring out a way. You got to have the bucks there in order to hunt them. So you find these spots that have the bucks, then you figure out a way to hunt them.
Yeah. And there's always a way.
Right. There's
Always a way.
So if you look at the people that are looked up to in the hunting industry, all of what we'd call the greats, right? You know, look at Mark Drury, Lee and Tiffany. If you look into our realm, maybe Eberhard, right, or somebody. All these guys that have a good following, they ain't like anybody else. They started a trend. Everybody else is copying.
They're all original.
They're originals. If you ever want to be somebody great, you're an original. You can take tips from me, you can take tips from Eberhard, you can take tips from Drury, you can take tips from Lee Lakosky, but when you take those tips, don't think you have to copy them to a T, because they might not work exactly for you and your spot and your scenario and the way you hunt.
Exactly.
But those tips can help you. But take them with a grain of salt and learn your own style and do your own thing. And if there's one thing that I've learned over time, is that 90% of the literature you see is bull crap. It's just some wannabe spilling stuff out. I mean, most of the stuff you see now is way worse than it used to be, because now you've got these young kids kill one buck and now they're experts. And all they're doing is regurgitating things that they've heard and learned and stuff like that. And they probably killed that buck a little out of luck. Well, every buck's a little out of luck, right? So really, to make your own path. Figure your things out for yourself, where a deer lives, how it lives, what it does. Every property is different, every scenario is different, every state is different because of the way they do their rules and laws and stuff. And what you have to do is make your own way and be original.
You got to be yourself at the end of the day.
Right.
You can't pretend to be somebody, because that'll never work.
Right. As soon as you see somebody get popular, like the Hunting Public or whatever, or myself, and Eberhard, you'll see a whole bunch of people make videos exactly the same, do the exact same thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong. But I just like to see some originality in there.
Yeah, like funny t-shirts.
Right.
Everybody loves your t-shirts. What do you got on today?
Can't snuff the rooster. I had that one specially made for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good example of originality, though.
Yeah.
You don't see anybody else in the hunting industry.
You know, a big part of it is I like to snuff my nose at all these people that show up and do a video, and they're in some pristine studio. They don't have a forklift behind them. They don't have. They're wearing Sitka head to toe. Yeah. Not that I got anything against Sitka, but I'm just not that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm just myself, and I don't like fakes. I don't like people who put on some sort of show like they're better than you. You know, like I'm the greatest hunter in the world kind of thing. I'm not the greatest hunter in the world. Obviously, I make a lot of mistakes.
No, you're number 34.
Right, number 34. I'm gonna get a jersey made.
Yeah.
that'll tick off the haters. That's another thing too. When you bring up the haters, I mean, if you don't have haters, and you've got a YouTube channel, or if you're trying to make something of yourself and you don't have haters, you ain't nobody.
You're doing something wrong.
Right, because success is what breeds hate. These people hate because you're doing better than them.
Hate actually does very well for somebody's popularity. It really does. When you take a look at it, it brings a lot of attention.
Right, right. I mean, you guys don't really see a fraction of the hate that I get. Because I sit on YouTube deleting the messages and banning the people constantly.
People hate you so much, they poop in your yard.
right. Yeah. And we were out gun deer hunting. A group of local people, nice young clads, went by doing drives in the places that we do drives. Obviously, they were never doing that before. So they started this last year. And what they're doing is they're copying. It's going to the same spots. Like I said, I mean, you want to do drives or whatever, go do drives, but don't copy to a T. Why do you have to hunt my spots? Go find some. I teach you how to do it, right? But they go by, and the first one waves, and then I watched, and how many cars were there? Like 6? Yeah. Every one of them went by like this as they went by. Hey, oh yeah, thanks. You're gonna go hunt my spots, watch my videos, and then whip me to bird, right? Yeah, that's the respect you get, you know?
Yeah.
But they hate you because you're successful, you know?
You know, and most guys would give them the bird right back. But you laugh about it, and you waved, and that's your originality.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what people respect about you, is because you're a pretty down-to-earth guy, and you're relatable to everybody. I mean, you work a full-time job, and you always keep a positive attitude.
Carol says it all the time. We go through town, everybody waves to me. Some with the whole hand, some with one finger. But everybody waves.
Yeah. This time I got to witness the wave. You know what's always fun is when you're on a out-of-state trip with Dan, and you're in the middle of the woods where you don't think anybody would ever find you. Somebody comes out of the woods and they say, "Dan, is that you?"
From 100 yards.
Yep. And I'm like, "God dang it, Dan. I know it's not your fault, but we're hunting."
Yeah, it is amazing. You know, it's kind of funny because I get recognized more on road trips than I do at home.
Yeah.
I think the people recognize me at home. They just don't say nothing. You know, on road trips, people are like, "Oh, he's in my state." Then they say something.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of funny.
It is.
But
you need to be thinking outside of the box and try new things, as opposed to doing the same thing day in and day out. I think it builds your overall character as a hunter, and it grows yourself as a hunter, and creates new abilities for yourself.
A lot of people are not hunting. They're at home. They're shoveling driveways. They're taking care of stuff like that. I think today is an ideal time to be out in the woods hunting. I'm getting ready to head out right now. It's dark just like it's nighttime. The deer are going to be holed up right now. They're going to be in their bedding areas. They're not going to be moving. But the snow is soft and wet and new. You can move in it quietly. It's the end of the year. I got nothing to lose. Today's the day to sneak in them bedding areas and sneak right up to them. They'll never expect it.
The risk really equals the reward. You have to be willing to gamble, just like anything in life. You have to take some gambles along the way, and change things that you're doing, and try new things if you're not having success at what you're doing. And really, a lot of times that stuff can pay off when you think outside of the box and you're trying these new things.
Think about first sits. You know, how many times have I killed absolute monsters on first sits? Mm-hmm. First time you ever sat a spot, first time you ever tried something. Because you get in your head, you look at a property and like, where is nobody hunting? That's my mindset. Mm-hmm. Where is nobody going? Where can these deer live? It has their habitat to some degree, but nobody's pestering them. What is being overlooked here? Mm-hmm. Then you go in and you throw a hunt at it. And quite often, it's a complete failure. Probably more often than you go to a tried and true spot.
Sure.
But those are the spots where you kill the legendary bucks, where you kill them freaking monsters. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's risk equals reward. You got to be willing to do some of them stupid hunts. You got to be willing to fail to succeed.
Right.
Risk equals reward. You know, I usually like force myself to take Tuesdays off, take my wife out for tacos. Mm-hmm. And now it's become kind of any random day, not just Tuesdays. But I take a day off a week to spend with my wife. Because otherwise, if I don't force myself to do that, I just won't.
Yeah.
And then my wife would pay for it, you know. Mm-hmm. But I get this feeling of guilt every time I don't hunt. Like if I take a day and I don't hunt, I actually feel guilty about it. I feel like, oh, I'm weak. I feel like I'm weak. Feeling. That's what I was going to ask you. You get that guilt feeling?
I have that same feeling, yes. Yep, I do. You just never know when it could happen.
Right.
And I just need to be in the woods. I can't even explain a lot of it, but there's just that need. It's not even a want, it's a need. I think it's kind of my escape from the world in some senses. I just like the challenge. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, but absolutely, I feel like guilt for sure. And you said, you know, you have to take a night for your wife once in a while, and it is a big sacrifice for everything in life. I think I could do quite a bit better with my business if I didn't hunt at all and I just worked every day. And I work a lot, but what I do is I put a lot of hours in for summer so that when fall time comes, you know, I can get out and hunt. And fortunately, you know, I have a wife at home too that's accepting of it. Mm-hmm. I don't have any children, so that helps my situation. But you got to make sacrifices too. It's, you know, like
I sold all my children to the Amish so I'd have more hunting time. No, you got to have a good spouse. You got to have somebody that wants you out there hunting, that appreciates what you do and appreciates you for who you are. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you end up with somebody that's argumentative, that's mad every time you go hunting and stuff, you're never going to be mentally there when you're hunting. You're always going to be worried about what they're thinking, you know, if you're doing the right thing and kind of thing. You got to have that support. Mm-hmm. That's huge. It's kind of like your hunting partner, even though she's back home. You know, I remember that one we were talking about earlier, that 170-inch buck I shot last year. I came home from that hunt early because of Iowa, being pissed off about the deer I shot in Iowa and didn't recover, and also because it was Carol's birthday, and I wanted to surprise her because I was supposed to be gone for her birthday. Mm-hmm. When I came back, when I got to my senses and I wanted to get back out hunting, I was pacing around, staring out the window. I didn't even say it; she could see it. And she said, you know, you don't have to take me out tonight. Just go out and hunt. I'm like, no, I'm here for you. I'm here for your birthday. And she goes, if you're going to pace around, stare out the window, and not even be there for a conversation when we're eating tacos, just go hunting. I'm like, okay. And I went, and I got a boon around it, right?
Yeah.
But she was real happy with that. I mean,
Yeah.
we call that her birthday buck. I got her a buck for her birthday. You know.
In fact, this year too, my wife, she actually told me, she said, it's kind of nice when you're gone this time of year. That was music to my ears.
You know, that's the thing about being married for years versus being newly married. Your wife wants you around all the time when you're newly married.
Yeah.
It gets older, they're like, they like to have a little time.
Yeah, I mean, she likes to spend time, of course, but yeah, I'm fortunate that I have her to allow me to do this, you know, but who knows, if she didn't like it, I may just say, well, I'm just gonna go hunting, and that's that, but
Yeah,
it works.
If she keeps being so nice about it, I might actually buy her the kids back from the Amish. When I hunt, my focus is on shooting a target buck. I'm not thinking about, you know, shooting lesser bucks. I'm not thinking about shooting does. I'm not thinking about any of that. Its focus is on the buck I need to take. That is what puts a wall full of bucks on your wall. If you're wasting days doe hunting, you know, when you could be buck hunting, you're limiting the number of chances. Mm-hmm. Your odds are at a certain point with how many hunts you hunt. Mm-hmm. Every hunt you have a certain amount of odds. And it's really, no matter what you talk about skill, a lot of it has to do with time in the tree. At prime times when deer move and being in the right positions. You keep putting yourself in the right positions, and sooner or later, luck and skill collide. Mm-hmm. But you got to take as many chances as you can. You know, same thing. You and I both had opportunities where we knew about decent bucks, good ones. That if they walked by, you'd shoot them. Mm-hmm. I'd shoot them. You know, 130s, 140s. You know, and you're like, oh, that's a pretty nice buck. Mm-hmm. But I'm onto this giant. Am I going to waste a hunt on that buck, even though the odds are really high, or am I going to take a low odds hunt at this giant? I'm going to take the low odds hunt at the giant. Mm-hmm. I'd probably still shoot that buck if he walked in. Sure. But there's something about me wired where I have to go for the goal. Mm-hmm. I can't settle for taking third place. I have to take no place or first place.
Sure.
Wasn't it like Vince Lombardi said second place is just a first place loser?
Yeah. You know, honestly, I don't really make the decision until it's go time and the thing's in front of me. And I honestly go off of how I feel in that moment. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just me. That's just the way that I enjoy to hunt. I don't necessarily have to take the biggest one, but I kind of think anything in my mind that's a success is a success to me in my own way. You know, I don't want to shoot small bucks. I'm after something bigger, definitely. That is the ultimate goal for certain. And it depends where I'm at in the season. You know, but it goes back to your originality. You know, that you're gonna let that 150 pass because you want to shoot the 170. You know, me, I'll probably take the 150. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah, I get that. I'm saying I'd probably take them too, but I'm probably not going out of my way to hunt.
Right.
You know, the does are a thing that really gets me. I get people ask me all the time, at what time in the season do you take a couple days off and doe hunt? Never. You know when I shoot a doe when I'm bow hunting? When it's the last minute and I know I'm not coming back and there's one standing in front of me and it's almost closing zone. That's when I take a doe on.
But that's when the buck comes in.
Well, if I'm about to get down or something.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times you can shoot them without screwing up a buck too, but I don't want to go out of my way to hunt them.
You just never know though. You take that shot at that doe. I mean,
I've had
a couple of years ago. I've had it cost, right?
Yeah.
You shot that doe right ahead of that buck that came in.
And, yeah, that was a total catastrophe. New word again. I'm going to make my own dictionary. That was a catastrophe. But I had I didn't believe in the spot. And that's part of it. You gotta believe. So what I had was, I had a camera at Dave's that was getting pictures here and there of does, you know, and all of a sudden it started getting a lot of pictures of does and a few pictures of bucks. None of the bucks were a shooter. Some of them were pretty nice, but none of them were a shooter. But the camera was being really active. And I thought, something's up. You know, something's up there. Maybe a doe's going in heat or something, but something's going on. I should get in there. So the way the wind was, I had to be back a ways, but I could be kind of where those deer are going. And I got in there and I talked myself into, well, I'd like to have some venison in the freezer. Maybe I'll just take a doe from back here and kind of watch what's going on. And does came out, and I took the doe. Doe runs off and dies. I look over and there's a buck watching me. And I'm like, oh my God. He's not watching me, but he saw what happened.
Really?
He didn't know what happened. He heard the shot, saw this, and he's like, just locked in, like, what was going on there? What was going on there? And I'm like, oh crap. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, okay. It's about a 130-inch buck. I don't know. Maybe I'd shoot him, maybe I wouldn't. He has to come over here for me to decide. And, you know, let's see if he's, as, you know, above what I think he is or below what I think he is, you know. Sure. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, what an idiot. I should not have shot that doe until I really scanned around. Somehow I missed him and him coming out.
Yeah.
So I'm watching him, and as I'm watching him, I hear something, and I look down, and here's this absolute monster walking underneath the bushel basket rack. And I'm like, holy crap, coming right out underneath me and kind of looking where that doe ran and stuff. And honestly, the thing was on pins and needles because I shot that doe. Then I drew my bow and he caught me. Well, no, I think he actually caught me. I had my bow drawn already. Then he caught me and looked up because he's looking into trees and stuff because he heard the shot. He saw that they don't get that old out there by not knowing what a shot is or. I tried taking it down the throat and was unsuccessful.
Right.
And that was a fail because I tried to take that doe. If I wouldn't have done that, I do believe that buck would have walked out natural, never looked up in the trees. He wouldn't have saw me way up there. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't have been looking for me. He would have come walking out natural and I just shot him.
Yep. He probably would have been a dead buck.
Yeah. So
But that's just a prime example of, you know, not hunting for the does. And if you want to hunt for does, there's nothing wrong with that. But
well, I like meat. You know what's fun for me to take does? During gun season.
Yeah.
We're doing drives.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't make one difference when you shoot a doe. Except, I mean, this year when I shot that doe, I maybe could have got a shot on that big buck that Jerry shot.
Yeah.
If I hadn't shot that doe, which actually turned out to be an antlerless buck.
Right.
But that's really the exception. Usually, with a gun, you can shoot the doe and then shoot the buck too. Mm-hmm. You know, but is what it is.
Right. Yeah, that's a good time of year to take a doe for me too.
Yeah. I do like taking them with the bow, but I really don't want to blow my gun hunt. I mean, my buck hunt.
Right. And it can happen any time of the year, whether it's October lull or whatever. I mean, this year for the October lull, I saw bucks like crazy. Mm-hmm. You just got to be in the right spots.
You know what, too? When people are talking about, taking a doe, how many hunts do we see where we see nothing?
Quite a few.
More than half, probably, because of the way we hunt, right? Mm-hmm. But on the ones we see a doe, how many of them do we see multiple deer? Also, you see bucks and stuff too.
Yeah. Yep.
If deer come in, deer come in. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I mean, when you have a doe come in, you're probably much more likely to have a buck come in too. Right. You're in an area that has deer that's undisturbed if the doe comes in. Because we're hunting public land. Mm-hmm. You don't know where people have been and all that kind of stuff. And if deer come in, there's deer around, there's probably other deer around. Mm-hmm. So shooting the wrong one might stop you from shooting a big buck.
Right. Yeah, public land hunting is a little different than private is that way. You know, you got to be a little more selective on what you're going to take. I actually had not hunted private at all this year. Typically, I like to get 1 or 2 hunts in on some private, but it's just a challenge. It's just a challenge. I don't even want to say that I shot it on private, you know, just because I like the challenge. Not that I didn't want to get over there, because there's always action when I get over there, but I was on to some other things this year on public that I just wanted to keep chasing. It was too easy for me to go to the private that I can hunt and crawl up a tree that it's literally 60 yards from my truck. And I probably know I'm going to see a buck come through. But
I hunted private twice this year. In one case, I was 25 yards from public. In the other case, I was 5 yards from public, shooting onto public.
Yeah, in that Tamarack swamp, right?
Yeah. So one thing I see get to a lot of people is, and I hear this a lot from people, they'll tell me how everybody else is killing, you know, big bucks and they're not, and you go online and everybody's shot one, and you know, you don't feel adequate, and if you shoot one, it's like not as big as everybody else's, you know, and you know, I see that get to people, and I can remember even going through some of your footage, you know, because you got that camera running all the time, and you'd be like, everybody in the group shot one. I didn't get one. Everybody's got one, and then you were talking about supper or something, but
Thanksgiving, a little turkey and mashed potatoes.
But that does get to you. But what you got to realize is a lot of these people are, you know, they're hunting private land. They're, you know, they've got daddy's back 400 acres and stuff, and not everybody's shooting deer. There's a lot of people in the same, you know, basket you're in. You know, and if you're hunting public land and you're not in one of the premium states and you're only hunting 10 or 15 days a year, don't expect to have the results that these other guys have. It's really not apples to apples.
Right.
It's not, you know, even me to you, there's huge differences. Me to Ricky gets out a lot less than I do, right? It's a matter of, you know, we all spend money on hunting too. It's not like you can say, well, the rich people, because they buy hunts, they buy deer. We all do. You know, I don't know about you, but half my paycheck goes into hunting. You know, one way or another, whether it's gas or it's motel rooms, or but it goes into hunting. It might not be leases, it might not be outfitters, but we're all spending the same kind of money on hunting, whatever we have. Basically, if you're addicted to it, it's just a matter of the type of hunting you like to do. You know, and you cannot compare yourself to somebody. You can't outbuy some people. I mean, some people are rich and they'll go on premium hunts all over the country. Some people that are well known will beg other people in other states and stuff for tips and leads and to hunt their properties, and you know, you can't compete with that. Right. So all that stuff you see online, don't worry about it. The one you got to worry about is you.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with it? I mean, I can see it gets to you sometimes.
It does sometimes. It does. This year I had a scenario where I brought, you know, a good friend into an area that I've been hunting down pretty heavy, and you know, it's a mile and a half, 2 miles back, and he didn't have a place to hunt.
Don't tell me that bastard shot your buck.
It wasn't my target buck, but I asked him, I said, you want to get yourself buried in the marsh tonight? He didn't have a place to hunt. He said, sure, let's go do it. And I had brought him in. I had been into this property. I mean, it's a pretty big property. So I had been in here probably 12, 13 times. And I just kept telling myself, just keep, it's a long ways in, it's a long ways out. But I said, just keep doing it, man. Just put your head down and keep going forward. Because I knew there was good stuff out there. There's good stuff out there all over the place. And so my buddy came with me that evening. And it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We got him set up in a tree. 20 minutes later, pretty nice 8 came running in front of him. He shot it. He didn't know if it was dead or not, but so that was an example of, like, I have been out here, I've put the time in, I've scouted. What is going on? It's just not happening for me. You know, I've had a few good encounters out there. I just can't get the buck right in front of me, and it's everything that I scouted. And then to have my buddy, you know, in 20 minutes of sitting in that spot, when I'd spent countless hours out here to shoot something, I was extremely happy for him But in some ways it was bittersweet because I was the one that put all the work into that, you know? But when I get upset about something like that, I keep it as short-lived as possible because I know that bad attitude is not going to get me a buck. That I know for certain.
I am very capable
You know?
of laughing at that stuff.
Yeah.
Saying, I can't believe you come in here in one day and do this. but you know, you feel like there's something bigger for you, you know.
Yeah.
And I really don't have to kill anything. But even me, if I go a couple seasons without a deer, I get a little pissy about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, it is nice to, you know, have a reward at some point, you know, because you do put a lot into it. And, you know, not that it's not a job. We love doing this day in and day out. Otherwise, I would not be out there every day. But, yeah, it's nice. It's nice to be successful from time to time, you know.
Right. I think back, and I always remind myself of this if I get a little pissy, is that when I was a kid, there was a guy who was kind of a legendary guy named Dick Idle. And Dick Idle isn't too well known anymore. I think he's still alive. I think he's kind of retired. He's got to be very, very old. I know he built a lot of, you know, he used to be a sculptor and an artist. He'd make these giant deer sculptures. But that guy was really well known for his hunting. And I can remember back in the mid-'80s, he would be out hunting. You'd read about this guy and stuff. And he would have his camera along. He'd take pictures of these deer, and he'd be hunting Saskatchewan or Manitoba, or maybe he'd come down and hunt Ohio or something. But he would hunt these giant bucks, and he only wanted to shoot Boone and Crockett's. He wanted to make Boone and Crockett, which I could care less about score personally. Sure. But you got to admire this guy. He had pictures of these deer that would be like, you know, this one because it's missing a tine on the one side. It's a 4x5. It would gross, you know, 178, but it's not going to net 170. It's going to score in the mid 160s. I'm going to pass that and take pictures of it while it's underneath me. And you see the gun sitting here and deer's at 10 yards, and you're like, holy crap. And back in the 80s, that was a huge deal. I mean, there wasn't all these food plots and, you know, deer farming and cameras and ranches, and you know, it was pretty awesome to see this. And that guy, I always admired him because he'd go years without shooting a buck, but when he'd shoot one, it would be an incredible monster. And I always looked up to that, where I always felt like, you know, when I settle and shoot a 140 or something, I feel like I failed because I didn't hold out and go without a deer. You know, to me, there's some of that in me. I know that's a little different. And honestly, it got different in my age. When I was younger, I had to put deer on the wall. I had to, you know, I had to kill them. I had to put them on the wall. I had to be the man. But that ego tames down a little bit. You know what I mean? And I go back to that, looking at how Dick Idle handled himself. That guy was a class act. You know of him?
I do not. Oh, but he sounds like an idol.
He was one of the original guys of like the North American Whitetail magazine, Big Buck magazine. But you know, those were magazines that came out of that era. You know,
Sure.
Probably more the 90s, and he started before the 90s. You know, there's a thing right now with these young people where they think they can learn anything on YouTube or in a book. You know, they come out of like college and they believe they can learn anything. And I'm not mocking anybody or anything, but they think they can study like the hunting beast methods or whatever, and they can learn everything about mobile hunting and from the books and from the print and from the YouTube, and they can go out and just be that guy. But really, that's going to give you a huge advantage, but it ain't going to make you a beast. The mental toughness is what makes you a beast. The time of field is what makes you a beast. The dealing with stresses in the field that you can't learn from paper. You don't learn how you're going to fall through the marsh. You don't learn how the deer's going to react when you go to pull the bow, or exactly what time to pull the bull back,
Right.
unless you're doing it yourself.
There's nothing like first-hand experience. There's nothing that beats that.
You gotta love that when they give you second shots. If you ever get shot at by the big buck serial killer, don't stop running. So, This is the first shot. It actually went through. You can see it went through the brisket and into the chest cavity a little bit. And that deer came back after that, walked right back in and let me shoot him here. What do you guys think? A little busted up. This one's broke, his brow's broke off.
Oh, you got some stickers on there.
Kickers and stuff, yeah.
Like you said, I mean, you can use, you know, some of what you teach to your advantage and that kind of thing, but you have to take those things and apply it to your own hunt. You can't mimic exactly what Dan is doing here and be Dan, you know. You can take some of what, you know, he has taught you and apply it to your situation, but at the end of the day, you have to learn it on your own. It's like putting your hand in a fire. You have to put your own hand in the fire to see how hot it is, you know.
And the biggest part of it is the mental toughness. You can't buy that.
Right.
You can't buy confidence, and you can't buy skill. You have to earn it. You have to learn it. You have to earn it through time afield. You have to earn it by having a wall full of deer that you earn. I mean, there's something about time and field that's going to make you better, and you just have to keep grinding until you get there.
It's the best way to learn,
Right?
is to be out there. And, you know, I always try to take something away from every hunt, every night. And sometimes it's hard to come up with something, but you really think about it, you can almost always pick something out of that hunt that you learn. You know, and through the season, if I haven't had any success, I do get, you know, I can get down on myself from time to time, but I always have to remind myself that it can change in a hurry. From 1 second to the next, it can change so fast. And this year was actually, not that I had success this year with the bow yet, but a perfect example was rut. I had a really bad rut, probably the worst rut I've ever had. I wasn't seeing any deer at all. I saw one 8-pointer that was like 100 inches at about 20 yards. Yeah, I could have taken them, but it's not something I was happy with shooting. So, but since then, I had not seen a deer, and I couldn't believe it. In areas I have pre-scouted, but come, you know, shortly after prime rut, I think the first day I spotted this buck was like November 12th. So you're a little bit out of the rut window, getting to be later in the rut
Wisconsin,
window.
yes.
Yes, in Wisconsin, yes. And I had a really, really nice buck show up, and it was pretty least expected, but, you know, and I didn't get a shot on him, but had I been in the right position, it would have changed in a hurry at that moment. You know, I had not been seeing a lot up until then.
It can change in a second. Any second, everything could change. That deer could come walking in any second. It goes back to that hunt we were talking about earlier, where I got down just a little bit early because the wind changing, and literally not even a minute. If I'd have waited 1 minute, that thing would have been walking underneath me and probably got narrow. It just takes a second. It just takes the right moment. It just takes, you know, luck and skill got to collide.
Right. There is absolutely some luck in hunting. I fully believe that. You do have
absolutely.
you have to create your own luck too, but
Absolutely. Luck and skill got to collide. I mean, luck has a lot to do with it. Skill has a little bit to do with it, but with no skill and you do the same things as everybody else, you can have zero luck.
right.
You know, you take gun season, for instance. We go out and on opening day, parking lots are full. Guys are everywhere. I hear people always say, like, you guys doing drives on opening day ruining everybody's. We don't ruin everybody's hunts. The only shooting they get is because we're doing drives. And where we do the drives, there is nobody. Where the deer are, there's nobody. You look at where those guys are hunting, it's the most ridiculous places you ever saw. They're not going to have any luck.
Right.
So you got to be in the right spot at the right time. The right time is probably the luck part of it. But skill is the right spot part of it.
Sure.
And you got to have that, or you're not going to kill crap. You might kill deer. Anybody can kill deer. There's a lot of deer around.
Right.
You want to kill deer, just go hunt randomly.
Yeah.
But to kill giant bucks, those deer have learned where everybody hunts. They've learned where people walk. They learned where people go, and they avoid it. They have a way of getting through the woods without going near them. I have tracked deer in winter, followed them in the snow, and found how big bucks will walk through an area just loaded with timber, trees, and stuff where everybody hunts, and you're amazed to see them go a mile without walking past a huntable tree. And you're like, okay,
That ain't an accident.
Right.
That is not an accident.
And especially if you've seen that more than once.
Right.
It's almost proof in the pudding, you know?
People in my area will say, you know, I've been hunting that marsh for years, you never see a rut. They're never rutting, they rut at night. No, they chase the cattails. They're not stupid enough to go run around the woods.
Right.
You know, you see them in the cattails, never come out chasing, running, and you'd be hanging over the island going, come a little closer.
I think if you're after a big buck and you want to kill a big buck every year, I think a lot of it does come down to hunting smart, but also putting the time in. I think you need to put the time in along with the smart setup, and I think eventually it will all come together. You need to be out there, you know, all season long, and especially because these deer are changing patterns throughout the season. You can't be out there just for rut because you're only hunting them on rut pattern. If you don't have something shot yet, you need to move with the deer, and you need to follow them to where they are in late season if you want to kill something. So I do think to an extent more time in stand is probably your better bet with being successful in a season. In hunting all season too, it allows you to grow as a hunter and see how these deer are living, you know, year round.
Got me another one.
If you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, and you dissect the deer that are on my wall. Now I've got over 40, probably closing in on 50 now. I kind of lost count, but I know it's over 40 big buck heads on my wall. And you look at those and you dissect them. Now the ones that are older than 4 years old, that I know are older than 4, you get into them, and I think something like 60% are early season before rut starts. And something like 25% are rut, and then the remainder is late season. So I'd only have 25% of my deer heads if I only had a rut.
Yeah, that's incredible to think about.
Yeah. Now, take that with a grain of salt because I get way more opportunities to shoot bucks during rut. But when we're talking 5, 6, 7-year-old deer, I do way better early season, and I do pretty good late season, except for late season it's hard to kill them, but it's easy to get on them.
Right. You don't have a lot of cover in the late season.
Right. It's hard to shoot them out of a tree with a bow. But early season for sure. I mean, early September, even early October, I'm doing really well when people are saying, it's the lull, it's too hot out. You don't hunt when it's warm. I'm just killing monsters, you know. One a few years ago, 5 days into the season.
Yeah, yep.
We've got a few of those. I got a few opening day just monsters, you know. Just is what it is, but you got to be hunting to kill deer.
Over there is buck bedding out in there, and there's a trail that comes in just like this and comes around down here, and another one that comes down here. In the past, the does have bedded right along in here, in satellite beds and small bucks, and the bigger stuff beds out there. When I hunted this last year, the does got up bedded right beside me here in that brush, and by that little tree there, within shooting range to get out of the beds. And they never knew I was here until they got right underneath me and got my wind. And then they spooked and they ran back and they started blowing and blowing and blowing. And at the same time I could hear a buck coming out of that bedding area. I never saw it. It might not have been my dream buck, but I had a vision of what it was in my mind. So, been waiting for north wind. Been waiting for brisk wind. It's windy. It's north. We're giving it a shot. This is only the third time ever I've hunted this.
I hunted it for the first time last year, and then I gave it another attempt like a month later, and after that first sit, this wasn't any good anymore. It's like everything else, you gotta leave it alone. One or two precision strikes. See the trail going to the bedding? See how heavy it is? See how all the cattails are broken down on it? Here's a little tip for you. Those big bucks go down those big open trails. If you're in a trail that you can barely get your bow down, you know, that's those. Small bucks. Big bucks can't get their rack through those trails, just like you couldn't get your bow through there sideways. You can tell which trails are being used by the bucks. The tips of the cattails will be broken off at rack height, and the trail will be wide open like that. There's such a thing as too thick.
What do you think that your early season success, what would you say would be the biggest reason behind your success in early season? These giant bucks 5 days into the season.
Most of the ones that I shot in early season I knew about. I was hunting a particular buck, hunting a particular spot where I knew held a certain animal. And they're on that short window, but they're moving well into daylight.
What can you say about their pattern in early season? Are they coming out a little earlier than typical?
In early September they are. Like September to probably the third week in September they start slowing down. But those first couple of weeks of the season in Wisconsin in September, they're still kind of on a summer pattern where they're moving, the last maybe hour of daylight. Maybe it's not a far distance, but they're moving, and you can kill them. And they're on a pattern that kind of repeats itself.
Nice shot, Dan. That's a big deer.
Yeah, 150.
Sure.
Where you start getting into October and it starts getting a little more scattered, they start moving around a little more, they start getting a little more nocturnal. It almost seems like too, when they're just coming out of velvet, they don't have that edge. Like they're not walking around like this. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that that's actually pressure related, because you get down into ranches and stuff, like you hunt a private ranch, and they kind of act the same. They get boogie around in October, even though they're not being hunted, and it's a timing thing. There's something about the testosterone or something level or something that puts them into that mindset of now I'm being hunted kind of thing, I think.
That's very interesting that you say that. I've always associated it with it being a pressure thing, because they have now not been hunting for 6 months.
Even on private, I hunt places where there's been no pressure, and there's a change in their attitude come October versus early September. So that's why I feel that way.
Sure.
I'm sure pressure has something to do with it. But in a lot of cases, you're hunting where there's no pressure and they still act like that. The success at that time frame, a lot of times comes from glassing. It comes from knowledge. It comes from scouting. A lot of the winter scouting. That buck from 2 years ago, I went in there and really tried to figure out where is this thing living, and found a spot that I believed he lived in early September. Went in there and killed him in early September because of what I found during winter scouting. But those same deer become very smart the first time they smell they're being hunted. So it's kind of a first time. Most of those giant bucks I've taken in early September is the very first time I hunted them in that spot.
Sure.
Or the first time that year for sure.
And that buck, that was the first time you had ever sat in that tree.
Second.
Right? Okay.
So-
Oh yeah, 2 years in a row.
Yep. But I was smart enough when I failed the first time to back out and not come back.
Wait a whole year.
Waited a year before I came back to
There's
hunt them.
not too many guys that could do that.
Right?
Most guys would have came back a few times more.
That's part of that mental toughness. You got to know when to back out, and even if you're on something where you're like, well, I'm not going to have that great here. If you go in there and you keep pounding that when that deer's coming in leery, and what I mean by that is, a deer might come back, but when he comes back and he knows he's been hunted, what's he doing? He's checking the trees. He's going down and he's smelling if you're there. He's no longer just walking through.
I mean, you even took the gamble that he could have been shot for gun season.
Yeah.
You know, it takes some willpower.
You know, I find that most of these giants I'm hunting don't get shot. They don't get shot in gun season or bow season by anybody else or whatever. Every now and then you'll find out one gets shot. But for the most part, they just eventually disappear.
Yeah.
They're very hard to kill. They're very hard to kill. It's not easy, but it can be done if you're mentally tough and you put the odds in your behavior with some of the stuff we talked about, you know, and you work at it.
I spent many years killing deer, chasing dreams, and wandering alone in search of a bigger, badder buck. As the years passed, I kept finding myself accomplishing my goals, but still never being satisfied. A couple days after slaying a great buck, I'd be in another state or helping a buddy. It often left me wondering what my true goal was. It slowly came to light as I aged. It's not the big buck that I'm after. It's the chase. The one-on-one chess match with a giant buck on his terms. And the time alone chasing those dreams. Killing a big buck is a bittersweet thing. I have come to admire the magnificence of the beast and his playground, and it's sad to see him die and to see the hunt end.